Hello everyone, welcome in the 5th episode of the 2nd season of Searching for the Slavic Soul. Today we will be talking about Slavic Dola and how to get one. But before we get on with the topic, I feel I have to do some housekeeping, as I've realized yet again overestimated your understanding of the Slavic Pagan way. So some of you, I don't know if all of you, but some of you for sure, seem to be thinking that you deserve respect of all things, because apparently you have earned this respect, and how dare I be talking to you like that. So for those who claim to be following Slavic Native Faith and at the same time claim to deserve really anything, I've got news for you, sunshines. You do not deserve anything. You don't deserve anything not because you are in some special way unworthy or undeserving, but because the Slavic Native Faith point of view is that no living human deserves anything ever. Our pagan Slavic ancestors were grateful for the sun for rising in the morning. They were grateful for the sunrise so much that even in the 20th century, it was still customary for farmers to greet the rising sun by kneeling and saying a little prayer to say thank you to the sun for rising and to ask the sun to keep rising. Our pagan Slavic ancestors were grateful to the forest for the prey they managed to hunt. They were grateful for the prey so much that even now it is customary to leave a little offering to Leshy, who is seen as protective spirit of the forest, to leave a little offering to Leshy after a successful hunting. Our pagan Slavic ancestors were even grateful for the harvest they themselves cultivated. They were grateful for the harvest so much that every year after harvest they sacrificed part of their own harvest to thank the gods for it. So, our pagan Slavic ancestors were grateful for literally every day they had on this planet. They were grateful for the fruits of their own hunting or farming efforts. And what does it tell you? Well, if you're not an entitled dumb moron, it tells you that our pagan Slavic ancestors did not actually think they deserved anything. Because if you are grateful for the fruits of your own work, it means that you do not think that you deserve the fruits of your own work. If you thought you deserved the fruits of your own work, surely you would have just taken said fruits with unfettered conviction that you do, in fact, deserve it. So, if, as you claim, are knowledgeable in the Slavic pagan way, and, as you claim, are following Slavic Native Faith, but at the same time you think you deserve anything, you fool yourself, sunshine. As a matter of fact, if you think you deserve anything, you are an entitled moron and I really cannot help you. Take your entitlement and you'll believe in being deserving and get back to studying Bible, where it actually says that humans deserve the land, the harvest, the sun, or anything else, because all of that was given to humans by the Almighty Christian God. But if you want to follow Slavic Native Faith, you have got to get rid of your Christianized beliefs in entitlement and in being deserving, because such is the Slavic pagan way. As a Rodnover, you are supposed to share your Slavic pagan ancestors' belief that you do not deserve anything, and every single thing you have or are being given is a gift, for which you are grateful and you say thank you. You say thank you to Slavic gods, you say thank you to your ancestors, you say thank you to demons with whom you managed to develop a benevolent relationship, and you say thank you to your own given to you by rodzanice Dola. And That's it. As to respect, which you claim I owe you. Firstly, mate, I don't know you. I have no idea who you are. What more, you have no idea who I am. As far as you are concerned, I'm just a random stranger on the internet, and so are you as far as I'm concerned. As far as you know, I can be the most despicable person on the whole entire planet. And the same goes for you. You could be the most despicable person on the whole entire planet. There can be no respect between us because it is not possible to respect someone you do not know. You might as well throw a fit that Grzegorz Brzęczyszczykiewicz from Chrząszczy-Żewoszyce does not respect you. So what? There is 8.2 billion people currently living on Earth. 99.9999999% of these people do not respect you, mostly because they have no idea you exist and they don't care. What more, roughly 88% of these people live outside of Western democracies, which means that 7.2 billion people on this planet don't think you have any rights whatsoever. 7.2 billion people think that you do not have right to live, to pursue happiness, to have children, or to even be free to decide for yourself. So get over yourself, sunshine. Then, secondly, I haven't got the foggiest clue where you got the idea that I, or anyone else for that matter, should respect you. You most certainly did not get it from Slavic paganism because, as multiple historical sources tell us, pre-Christian pagan Slavs did not think they deserve any respect as individuals. If they were members of a respectable family, they could have thought that the family deserved respect, but that's as far as they ever went with any expectations of respect. Let's take Mściwój, the Prince of Obodrites, for example. As Helmold wrote, he was called a dog by the Duke of Saxony. He was called a dog in public, and you know what he did? Did he scream on the Duke of Saxony demanding respect? Did he argue he deserved respect? No, sunshine, he did not. He embraced being called a dog. He replied, and I cite here, "Well, then, if the dog be hale, he will take big bites." I told the story in full in the 22nd episode of the first season of this podcast, so you can go back and listen to it for more details. But here I just want to make a point. Living Slavic pagans do not think they deserve anything, including respect. If you think that you, as an individual, just for the sheer fact of existing, that you are owed respect, you have got to be an individualized snowflake, so by definition, not a follower of Slavic Native Faith. And finally, thirdly, I do not care if you listen to me or not. I do not make any money on this podcast or on the whole Vitya project. I do not care how many likes, comments, or listeners I get. If you don't like what I say, you are perfectly free not to listen, and it's all the same for me. It is not my goal to make you feel good about yourself or to make you feel appreciated or respected. If I appreciate something, I will tell you, but I will not be mindful of your feelings because I simply do not care. All I care about is to get as close to the original Slavic pagan state of mind as I can. I share with you what I find out, I explain my reasoning, and I do want to hear your opinion about it. But if your opinion is stupid, I will absolutely call you out on that. And if you don't like it, it's your problem, not mine. If hurty words offend you, it's your problem, not mine. However, What you need to know is that knowing how to listen to what you don't want to hear is the most basic skill that the whole generations of original pre-Christian Slavs and then generations of superficially Christianized pagan Slavs had to learn before they were welcomed into their families and communities at the time of coming of age initiation ritual. As I mentioned, I don't know how many times already, for centuries it was customary among Slavs to give children really bad names, which was a sure way to protect children from malevolent demons. So, children were called ugly, stinky, unloved, stupid, and such, and they had to listen to being called such names for years, and they were absolutely fine with that. Because these children, including toddlers, knew what the whole West seemed to forget. Words are just words. They only mean something if they accurately name what exists in Istina, in the reality. And if they do not accurately name or describe Istina, they are lies and need to be seen as such. And now, it is a fact that Christianity requires Christians to disown their families if the families do not share the Christian beliefs. So, if you disown your family for not sharing your beliefs, you are Christianized. And if you insist you are a Slavic pagan, then you are lying. Because Slavic pagans do not disown their families on the ground of different beliefs. Similarly, it is a fact that Marxists and neo-Marxists want to abolish the institution of family because it does not agree with their Marxist values. So, if you abolish the institution of family because it does not agree with your values, you are a Marxist or a neo-Marxist. And if you insist you're a Slavic pagan, then you are lying, because Slavic pagans do not abolish the institution of family on the grounds of disagreement of values, or any grounds for that matter. Slavic pagans celebrate the institution of family because they see family as divine institution necessary to achieve the goal of every Slavic pagan, becoming a venerated ancestor. As to calling you drugged up morons, if you can't cope with your normal human emotions and ingest psychoactive substances to stop feeling your normal human emotions, you are dragged up to your eyeballs moron with whom demons have their way on a regular basis. And you need to know that and understand that before you can even start talking about becoming a Slavic pagan. Because Slavic pagans only get overwhelmed by emotions when they are under demonic influence. And to get rid of said demonic influence, they do not take psychoactive substances, but they take steps to either protect themselves from demons or to get rid of demons from their lives, homes, land, and pretty much everything with which they get in touch. And if you don't do any of the mentioned above things, then you know that I am not talking to you when I talk about moronic, brainwashed, Christianized, neo-Marxist zombies. And you remain unbothered by what I say, like any grown-up and not demon-possessed Slavic pagan. But if you remain bothered, then you go back to the third episode of the second season of Searching for the Slavic Soul to learn how to remedy your situation of being possessed by demons. So, in order to become a Slavic pagan, you simply have to have strong family bonds, and you have to be able to feel your emotions and cope with your emotions without numbing them with psychoactive substances. And you also need to be able to tolerate hearing stuff that you don't like, that you don't think it's nice, or even stuff that you find offensive. Because as a Slavic pagan, you never take offense. If offending words or actions are issued or taken towards you, you take it, as Mściwój, the Prince of Obodrites, did, and use it to either learn a lesson about yourself or to teach a lesson to the one who issues offensive words or actions against you. And that is it. And now we can finally get into getting you a Dola. So, I spoke a lot about Dola in the 9th episode of the first season of Searching for the Slavic Soul, and I will ask you to listen to this episode for more details about what is Dola, how she operates, and where is she coming from. And maybe just a quick explanation. 5 years ago, when I was recording the original episode on Dola, I referred to Dola as it because back then I believed that I should be using English rules of grammar when I talk about things in English. And according to the English rules, things that are not humans are it. And Dola is not a human, so I called her it. But since then, I kind of stopped caring and decided to go the Slavic way, where Dola is a she, not an it. So this is why in this episode I call Dola she, and I will be calling Niedola she too, because this podcast is all about the Slavic way. So, today I will not be repeating what I said in the 9th episode of the first season, but I will be more building on it, since it has been over 5 years since I recorded the original episode on Dola, and in all these years I've read more, learned more, thought more, and managed to get more, let's call it, experience with Dola. So today I will be mostly reasoning, not so much citing sources, but we will look into the sources a little bit. And also I want to remind you that vast majority of modern Slavic pagans are essentially first generations Slavic pagans, because they come from families that for generations either practiced some form of Christianity or were agnostic or atheist. A small percentage of modern Slavic pagans might be second generation of Slavic pagans, like, for example, my daughter, or they might have come from a tradition of dwojewierie, which is a type of syncretic fusion of Slavic Native Faith and Christianity, most commonly practiced among Eastern Slavs. But still, majority of us are first generation Rodnovers, and it makes it hard because we have to figure out a lot on our own, including rekindling relationships with our ancestors, with our family, or with our dolas, if we even manage to get them. So I do acknowledge that it's hard and that it will take years of spiritual work to clear up the path of Slavic Native Faith so you can follow it and then walk the next generation of Slavic pagans on this path. Having said that, it's 100% possible to find this path, and I am certain that each and every one of you can find it, providing you will keep looking for it and actively prevent yourself from walking into the vast badlands of pseudo-Paganism, of which I talked in the 10th episode of the first season of Searching for the Slavic Soul. But back to getting you a Dola. If you already listened to the 9th episode, which is titled Dola and Niedola, you know that Dola is sort of personification of the wheel of Rodzanice, who are Slavic goddesses that spin our dolas. But also dolas are personification of the hopes and wishes that your family and the friends of your family wanted for you in the first few days after your birth. Because although Rodzanice spin the dola for a newborn child as they wish to spin her, nevertheless, if they are received properly and treated respectfully, they can be persuaded to spin into the newborn's dola the hopes and wishes of the family and the family friends who are present in the few days of the newborn's life. So over 5 years ago, I wasn't sure if rodzenice can be received properly in a hospital where most of us are being born nowadays. But since then, I have become certain that it might not be the deal breaker I thought it could be. And I have become certain of that because I have discovered that my daughter has an absolutely awesome and incredibly powerful Dola, with which she managed to develop a kick-ass, perfectly synced relationship, and it is just beautiful to watch. When I talked about Dola last time, I mentioned that if one is in sync with one's Dola, everything in one's life goes well and things just work out as they should. Back then, I didn't quite know the ins and outs of it, and I was more talking along the lines of trying to get in touch with one's Dola and see how things work out. But since then, my daughter has grown up and she moved out, and as she was moving out, I released her Dola and gave her to my daughter, even though I wasn't sure if actually there is a Dola to give. But now I'm 100% sure that my daughter was given her Dola, because since she's been living independently and closely cooperating with her Dola, it's just been mind-blowing how well things has been going for her. And I'm not talking here about positive outcomes of my daughter's efforts. I'm talking here about things that are completely outside of my daughter's or mine, or frankly anybody's control, that things that have just been going so incredibly well and in favor of my daughter's plans and efforts. So yeah, this is why I'm 100% sure that my daughter does in fact have a Dola, and what more, that she is in sync with her. I'm not quite sure why my daughter has a Dola. I think there are two possibilities. One is that despite being stuck in the hospital for the first 20 hours of her life, after we were both discharged home, when we got back home, it is possible that I did manage to create hospitable enough conditions for rodzenice to arrive and spin my daughter's Dola. And to come completely clear, I was not a practicing rodnover when my daughter was born. I did not do any ritual for rodzenice or anything like that, but I did fall in love with my daughter so much that for the first few days after she was born, I simply just could not stop looking at her. And as I was looking at her, I was thinking of all these amazing things I want to give her, or to build for her, or to fight for her to have. For example, I really wanted her to have people skills, which I really did not have back then. And it would have been another decade or so before I figured out how to reliably interact with people in positive way. So it is possible that rodzenice heard that and they spun my daughter's Dola, incorporating the wishes, hopes, and promises I made to my daughter. The other option is that one of my ancestors gifted my daughter her Dola. That I think is more likely, because since I started following Slavic Native Faith, I spent a lot of time raising the topic of my daughter's Dola with my ancestors. Often I would sit by my daughter's bed when she was sleeping and just tell my ancestors about the granddaughter and how important it was for us, like for me and my ancestors, to ensure that my daughter has all the support she can have while she's making her way through the world. So I think it is possible, or even likely, that one of my daughter's ancestors gave her her Dola. I can't say that I know when it happened, but what I can tell you is that as I was getting ready for my daughter's zapleciny, which is a Slavic Pagan initiation ritual for girls, I felt something changing, and something definitely categorically changed after my daughter's zapleciny. During the zapleciny ritual, I basically stood up in front of the group of rodnovers and in front of our żerca, which, because it was zapleciny, was a female żerca. So I stood up in front of them and I confirmed that my daughter is my daughter and that I am ready to let her find her own path and that I will do everything in my power to support her in finding this path until she's ready to walk this path on her own. And this is when something changed. There was a shift that I cannot really describe. It's like my daughter gained something, like something stood by her side. And then things started changing. She started to be more independent, more like started to make more choices on her own. It took maybe a couple of years of trying, like she was searching or trying to understand, and then something clicked and things just started to go incredibly well for her, like unbelievably well. To be perfectly honest, I've never seen anything like that. She would start thinking about getting a job, and voila, suddenly she would be offered a job without even sending one CV, just like that. We got a call from a college once offering her a place at this college, and she hasn't even applied to this college. Also, she started making friends, like there is no tomorrow. Actually, I think it's people skills that I first noted as a new and quite astonishing development. And she most certainly did not learn it from me. And then she moved out to Poland. And as we were planning the moving out, I prepared a ritual to fully release her Dola into her hands. The ritual involved a lot of elements, including, among other things, finding a blacksmith and forging a knife. And it's quite a long story, which I am planning to tell in a separate episode and maybe even with a video illustrating it. So I will not elaborate on it now. But once my daughter's Dola was released into her hands, this is when it became mind-blowing to see my daughter's Dola in action. I don't want to get into details because after all, it's my daughter's life and not my story to tell. But one thing I can tell you for sure, if you have a Dola and you are in sync with your Dola, you 100% know about it and everyone around you knows it too. Because when you have a Dola and you are in sync with her, sod's law suddenly becomes suspended and everything that can go wrong just goes right. So, this is one of the clues you follow while trying to get yourself a Dola or trying to get in sync with your Dola. You look for times in your life when things just went right. And I want to stress here, you are not looking for times in your life when you were happy. You are looking for times in your life when things went right. Because, in case you do not know, those are two different things. You might be very happy when you are shooting opiates intravenously, but it does not mean that things go right. On the other hand, you might be totally miserable when you are detoxing from opiates abuse, but if you manage to get a place in detox unit and there is someone by your side who, despite your despicable state, is still determined to help you as you are fighting your addiction, things are definitely going right. That's the difference. It's not about how you feel. It's about what's happening. which is another thing of which you have to be aware. Your Dola is not communicating with you through feelings or thoughts or dreams, as, for example, your ancestors are communicating with you. Your Dola is communicating with you through the outcomes of events. You absolutely can communicate with your Dola, rather communicate something to your Dola by talking to her, say, over lavish dinner, which is a Slavic custom. But she will not be talking back to you with words, feelings, or thoughts. She will be talking to you through outcomes of events. Like, even when you read about fortune telling in, say, Moszyński's Kultura Duchowa, the fortune telling is not taking place through visions, but through outcomes of events. Events such as throwing bone fragments or eviscerating an animal, or perhaps better suited to your sensibilities, pulling petals out of flowers. And by the way, according to Moszyński, one of the flowers seen by Slavic tradition as related to Dola is a flower that's called in English bitter fleabane, but in some regions of Slavdom, it's called either Dola or szczęście, which means good fortune. Because of that, I planted bitter fleabane on my balcony, and it seems to be doing a very good job at contributing to keeping my home safe, sound, and abundant in good fortune. Moszyński also mentions that bitter fleabane could be tucked in behind your belt, for example, during harvest, to ensure you retain skills necessary to successfully complete, in this example, harvest. But back to finding your Dola or figuring out how to get in sync with her. I'd say start with analyzing your life so far and trying to identify a time when things just went right. I do realize that is a very vague clue, and also that some of you, particularly those of you who are participating in the, so fashionable nowadays, Victimhood Olympics. So those of you might think that things in your life have never been going right, but still I will insist that you take time and effort to reflect on your life as honestly and subjectively as possible. If you are listening to me, you are clearly still alive and you have got access to the internet, which means that you have enough money to feed yourself and to pay the internet bill, which is something. And it also means that at least some things are going right. And the things that go right are the things that your Dola wants to be doing. See if you can identify these things and do them more often. Another way of getting your Dola or figuring out what is the thing that she wants to do is to talk to the members of your family or to family friends who were present in the first few days after you were born, and to ask them what they wished for or hoped for you in those few days. It is particularly important if you were born at home or if you did not spend the first few days of your life in the hospital, where I will insist is pretty much impossible to create a hospitable environment to properly receive rodzanice. Yet another way of figuring out your Dola situation is looking at the history of your family. And this is where I have been trying to get you since the first episode of the second season. Because in order to figure out your Dola conundrum, you have got to start talking to your family. And I do not mean saying hello or goodbye. I mean sitting down and talking with respect, interest, and openness about life of your family members. And just to be clear here, you must talk to your family with respect, not because from your point of view they deserve respect, but because if you talk to them without respect, they will be less likely to get involved into the conversation. and you want them to get involved into the conversation. So, following the Slavic pagan way, you do what needs to be done. And the reason you want to talk to your family is that since rodzanice might not have span a Dola for you, it is possible or even likely that if you have a Dola, it is one that you inherited from a member of your family. Or alternatively, if you don't have a Dola, or if you, what's worse, if you have a Niedola, you should be able to get a Dola from a member of your family. As to Niedola, do listen to the Dola and Niedola episode of the season 1 to learn more. And here I just quickly mentioned that Niedola is the opposite of Dola, which means that if you have Niedola, your Niedola will bring you nothing but bad luck, disease, ruin, and poverty. Quite like with Dola, if you have Niedola, you 100% know about it, and everyone around you knows it too, because everything you touch just goes to shit, no matter what it is, and no matter what you are trying to do about it. So, if you don't have a Dola, or you are stuck with Niedola, you absolutely can get a Dola from a member of your family. And what's important to know, the member of your family does not have to be dead. You can get a Dola from your dad. This is why you have got to start talking to your family and learn all you can about as many members of your family as you can. Because you want to see whose Dola you are most likely to get in sync with. And in order to know who has or had a Dola that you want, you need to know how their life went. And again, it's not about happiness. It is about results. It's about outcomes of events. So here's your homework. Reach out to your family and start asking questions. And I do not particularly care if you don't get on with your family. You will have to start getting on with them. I didn't get on with my family either. I had to learn how to get on with them. What I can tell you is that having ability to handle overwhelming emotions, which hopefully you've been practicing for the last 2 months, having this ability is going to be the most useful skill here. Make sure you are well rested and sober. Make sure you do not bring any demons with you so you can remain calm and composed. And you know what? Consider tucking in bitter fleabane behind your belt to help you remain calm throughout the whole conversation. Because it might be the most taxing conversation you have ever had in your life. And the reason for that is that during this conversation, you want to let the member of your family talk as much as he or she wants. You want to listen. You want to really listen. Do not argue. Do not get defensive. Just ask your question. Say, what did you wish for me, Mom, when I was being born? Or, what was the best time in your life, Dad? And then just let them answer. Let them tell you what's important for them, what has led them to where they are now, what was difficult for them, what was easy. Let them also tell you what they think about you. Let them be your mirror. After all, your mom and dad know you the longest, and they might know things about you that you would never know otherwise. Do not push any narrative on them. Don't correct them. If you remember things differently, keep it to yourself or tell them that carefully and respectfully without anger or hurt, only with openness to learn. And then, as you would do standing in front of the unknown, shut up and listen. It will likely take time for your family to open up. You might have to keep coming back until they're ready to open up, but that's just a part of the process. You are the first generation of Slavic pagans in your family. You are starting a new branch of your family tree. You are building your future and planning your afterlife. It was never supposed to be easy. So suck it up and keep going. And if you are one of those morons who think they have trauma from bad parenting, start thinking of the trauma your parents had to experience to become these heartless monsters that you tell yourself they are. Do you think it was easy for them to grow up with their grandparents? If you believe in oppressive society norms, think of how oppressive the norms were for your parents and grandparents. If you truly believe that such norms traumatize you, imagine only how much more significantly stricter norms traumatized the previous generations. Yet, these previous generations, they managed to live through it, through all of this alleged trauma, and they are still standing. Ask them how they did it. Ask them what they think helped them and what stood in their way. In the stories of success and failure, you will find clues about your Dola, the one that you have or the one that you want to get. What you should also do to help you with conversation with your family is reading a book titled Fault Lines by Karl Pillemer. It's a bit of a self-help book, so to be honest, I can't believe I am recommending it. But it is the only book I found out there that was written by a psychologist and that is about mending families and not dividing them. It's a bit basic, but it does have a lot of helpful guides on how to talk to your family in a productive way without what's so fashionable nowadays, blaming them for all your shortcomings. And do consider yourself blessed, because I had to figure it out myself while you have a book about it to help you along. As to those of you who don't have living family members, well, your homework will be to start analyzing your life as honestly and subjectively as possible, and to continue reaching out to your ancestors. You might not know who your ancestors are, but I can assure you, your ancestors know who you are. Keep inviting them for a meal on Thursdays and keep trying to build up your relationship. It might also be helpful to ask someone accomplished and competent to help you analyze your life from a point of view of what's in your life so far, what's been successful and what has not been successful. And I am not saying that because I think you are stupid, but because from my own experience, I know that it is not always easy or straightforward to objectively assess the events in your life. You might think that X was super tough or unfair, but it might be that this X actually had a good outcome because the X led you to Y, which you would not have done otherwise, and this Y ended up being successful. With such turns of events, the X could not be seen as a failure, but as a way in which your Dola led you to Y, which is something she really wanted you to do. Remember, it is not about how you feel. It is about outcomes of events. But I do admit, without family history, figuring out your Dola will be much more difficult for you. On the other hand, it will be worth it, because following the path of Slavic Native Faith, you will start a brand new branch of your family and thus secure a decent afterlife for yourself. And that is all I had to say for today. Yet again, I talked longer than I planned, but I do think the housekeeping part of today's episode was necessary. Also, because now if I get more stupid comments, I can just direct the commentator to the first 15 or so minutes of this episode instead of having to deal with yet another entitled moron. In the next episode, I will most likely try to get you outside of your inner spiritual life and outside of your family circle, so you can start interacting with the world in a Slavic pagan way. Depending on how much time it will take to go through all of that, I might or might not talk a bit about Slavic gods, but we see. I would just like to note here, for all of you who are dead set on worshipping Slavic gods, that we are 5 months into studying Slavic Native Faith, and we have not yet talked about worshipping gods, which should serve as a reminder to you that Slavic paganism is not about altars and chants and prayers. So get up from your knees and stop building these stupid altars. Apart of that, to all of you, please remember that the Squarespace site is closing this month, so do subscribe to Substack if you want to keep access to the blog post. Soon I am planning to start publishing text posts on the blog as well. I think it'll be translations of Polish publications and other Polish content on Slavic paganism. And if you subscribe to Substack, you will get an email as soon as the posts are published. And I will put links to the Substack site in the notes of this episode as well. Other than that, thank you for listening and see you next time. Sława.